if we are left to keep ourselves accountable in addiction, that won't work out so well, because I know I can't hold myself accountable, because every time I tried holding myself accountable, I would just end up relapsing. I kept that cycle continuing for 6 years out of the last 7 years of my severe substance abuse. Fellowship, friendship, friends, family, having relationships in my life, that's one of my main anchors that helps keep me calibrated to sober living. Practice the courage to be part of something outside of ourselves, and we can do that by partaking in fellowship. But we need to be part of a social network that can kind of motivate us and keep us going forward in life and keep us on the right path. So the benefit of fellowship and having relationships with others and having strong, firm relationships in our life is that they give us a sounding board for our thoughts, our feelings, our ideas. And when we're addicts or alcoholics and we're recovering, one of what's messed up about us is our thinking, our line of thinking, like the drinking thinking. It all starts with a thought, right? It starts with these crazy ideas, these crazy thoughts. Like one of my thoughts in early recovery was, I'm going to go hang out with my old friends, my old buddies who I used with an active addiction, and they just so happen to be crackheads and meth heads, and I'm going to go have a coffee with them. I'm going to meet them at a coffee spot, and I'm going to tell them about recovery, and I'm going to share the gospel with them, and all these things, right? And it was a harebrained idea. It was a stupid idea on my part. Really, it was my drinking thinking, and I was looking for a way back into my previous life. So I was opening up a door and peeking inside when I was thinking about going through with this harebrained idea. But what stopped me was that I told a close friend of me. I told a close friend my idea, my plan, and he looked at me and he's like, "Are you stupid?" And yeah, I was stupid, and I'm thankful that he pointed that out, because in my mind, I thought this was a good idea, right? Fresh out of recovery, 3-4 months sober, and I'm thinking that I can go and have coffee with a couple of meth heads and nothing's going to happen. Like, I'm going to be able to maintain my sobriety and not get pulled back into it, right? So by telling somebody these thoughts that I had, by telling somebody my plan, I was able to stop it dead in its tracks, because I sounded it off of somebody else, and by them regurgitating my plan or my thoughts back to me, I was able to see it from their perspective, from an outsider's perspective, and I saw how stupid of an idea it was, and that helped me divert from my course of action and helped me maintain sobriety. So being part of something, having a friendship, having friends, having family, having a group to talk to, having people to tell about our ideas and our plans and keep us kind of sane is important to maintaining sobriety and going forward in 2025. So a routine of habits, or a habit routine. So for me, one of my main outlets today, instead of going out and drinking and using drugs and partaking in sexual deviancy, is I physically exercise. I strength train, and I do high intensity interval training. I do some light jogging. The main point is I get my body moving. So I do a lot of exercising. I'm strength training. I'm progressive overloading. I'm building muscle, and I'm keeping myself fit. And that helps, I think, anchor me, because I'm doing a physical action that's keeping me moving and giving me momentum, and also releasing those positive neurotransmitters, dopamine, serotonin, epinephrine, adrenaline, and stimulating BDNF, which is brain-derived neurotrophic factor in the brain. And that pretty well stimulates neurogenesis, or the birth of new brain cells. And that helps me rewire my brain post-addiction. And that also keeps me feeling good, and it regulates my mood. So exercise is a big anchor for me. So I also have other habits, such as reading. I read every day. I read a nonfiction book every day, and I also read the Bible every day. I read gospel, I read an epistle, and I do that before bed. And I also write. I have a creative outlet that I do on a daily basis that I kind of feel is building towards something in my future. I can either journal or diary about my day, or I can write out my plans, my visions, my stresses, my worries, my ideas. And I feel that it's kind of building a a volume of work that I can draw on in the future for as like a resource of my own for creative projects and works that I'm doing, such as doing YouTube channels and coming up with script ideas and YouTube channel ideas and video scripts and whatever it may be, right? So I think having a physical outlet and then having an intellectual outlet, such as reading, and then having a creative outlet, such as writing, or maybe it's woodworking, maybe it's building something with our hands, maybe it's drawing or designing or doing CAD design or graphic design or building a website. I don't know. I mean, you could be a mason for all I care. As long as we're working on something that's outside of ourselves and that we can see the results of, I think that kind of anchors us into the present, and it also gives us something to work towards in the future by building something, by putting out creative work. So those 3 habits are part of my routine and help anchor me to my life in sobriety. And those 3 habits, again, are exercise, reading, and writing. Now on to the 3rd anchor. The 3rd anchor, for me personally, and I believe this can help other people too, the 3rd anchor is faith. For me, faith is belief in God or belief in a higher power, specifically belief in the Creator, the God of the Bible, that we are a creature that God created, and God is the creator, and there's a distinction between the creator and the created, the creator and the creation, the creator and the creature. So having faith in God, something that is powerful and outside of myself, gives me an upward aim, and something that can hold me accountable, because now if I'm aware of sinning, my sins, such as pleasing the flesh, partaking in drinking and alcohol and drugs and all these things, it puts a guardrail up in my life where I'm more conscious and aware of this sin. So I'm less likely to go back to drinking and drugging and licentious behavior, because I don't want to displease God. I want to maintain a good life. And I want to be a vessel worthy of being filled with the Spirit and being able to answer the call to which God has called me. And I know that by living in my former manner of life, I won't be able to do that. Second part of faith here is faith helps anchor me to something outside of myself, having faith and belief in a higher power in God, that not necessarily that he's judging me, but yes, he is judging me, and that my actions matter. So if I'm partaking in sin and drinking and drugging and wasting my life away and damaging the vessel that God gave me, right? The temple, that our bodies are temples. If I'm damaging that with poison, with alcohol, with substances, with risky sexual behavior, bad habits, then I'm dishonoring and I'm disrespecting the temple that God gave me. And it's not even my temple, it's God's temple, right? So I don't have any ownership over my own body, and here I am dishonoring it, destroying it, killing it with pleasures of the flesh, with drinking, with alcohol. So by believing in God and a higher power, it kind of keeps me on track. It does keep me on track, and it points me towards something outside of myself that can keep me in line and keep me in check. So I'm not just going off the rails, going off the wagon, binging for days, drinking, whatever. Another part of faith here is faith in sobriety, faith in the sober life, faith that by putting in the work day by day, eventually I'm going to get to a reward. And this isn't a guarantee, and I'm not doing this because I want a reward, but there is a bit of an expectation that if I'm doing the right things every day, 5 years from now, if I maintain this sobriety and I continue building the momentum with my work, with my projects, with my school, with my business, then maybe I will get some kind of tangible reward at the end of it. And even if I don't, I can enjoy the process. Enjoying the creative process is reward in and of itself. So having faith that taking the step in recovery is huge. And I think we all have to take faith growing from our stage of active addiction into the first stage of recovery. We have to take a leap of faith that our life in recovery, in a sober living, will be better than the life we were living in addiction. But when we're living in our active addiction, we can't see how better it will be in sobriety. So it takes a level of faith to live that new life, to ditch the old manner of life, to ditch the deceitful desires of the flesh, to stop our habits, to put the addictions down, to put the substance down, to put the alcohol away. That takes faith, right? So once we can exercise that first leap of faith, it's not so hard to exercise more faith in ourselves, faith in God, faith in our community, in our fellowship, and faith that we can live a better life in sobriety. If we are left to keep ourselves accountable in addiction, that won't work out so well, because I know I can't hold myself accountable, because every time I tried holding myself accountable, I would just end up relapsing. I kept that cycle continuing for 6 years out of the last 7 years of my severe substance abuse. So if any of this resonates with you, give me a like and subscribe, and check out this video for more.